All right, hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about politics in the 20s, and there's going to be a lot of scandal and corruption and things. It says, in what ways was the spoils system, how did it become a political problem once again? And how was the Kellogg-Briand Pact not realistic? Okay, so we're going to start with politics in the 20s. And it says Warren G. Harding's run for president in 1920 came with this promise, a return to normalcy. So we've come out of World War I, and a lot of Americans need to know that we're going to get back to normal. The men are going to come home that have survived and resume their jobs. Families will resume, with the man back in the home, et cetera, et cetera. So things are going to get back to normal. He, however, gives cabinet positions to his friends from his home state of Ohio, and they become known as the Ohio Gang. And he plays poker with them, which is not Uno, but you need to remember they're playing cards, they're playing card buddies. And he decides to give jobs to his card buddies that he plays with during the week. And it says these guys are going to use their positions in the cabinet to sell government jobs, to bribe people, to use pardons, like say if you'll do this, we will pardon your friend, your business partner, whatever. So they're basically using bribery and deceit, which is totally illegal. It says then we have the Teapot Dome. This is Harding's Secretary of Interior, meaning someone over the national parks and things. Albert Falls secretly allows the leasing of land that contains U.S. Navy oil reserves at Teapot Dome, Wyoming. So he's secretly leasing U.S. Navy oil reserve territory to people for money. He receives bribes of more than $300,000. So you can remember it. I brought my little teapot dome. Okay, teapot. It has nothing to do with the teapot, but the name of the place is Teapot Dome, Wyoming, where Harding, Secretary of Interior, is secretly running this bribery scheme. Okay, and some pictures of that. Here's one which shows the oil scandal, and everything's headed to the White House, notice, and it looks like the big drum here looks like a big teapot that's running over the cabinet members on its way to the White House. This cartoon is implying that Harding was aware of what was going on. Okay, so it implies that he knew. Here's another one, which is kind of cool. Shows the Capitol building made into like a teapot. So anyway, the problem was spilling over. It says Harding dies of a heart attack while in office, 1923. Some claim that this is due to the stress of the scandal. Okay, so Harding is out of there. All right, so his vice president, Calvin Coolidge, takes over, of course, when Harding dies. And he, of course, does the typical thing like Al Gore did when he was coming in after Bill Clinton, or trying to, distance himself from the scandals of the previous administration, even though he was part of the previous administration, but he's going to distance himself and try to make himself out like he's clean cut. Okay, not going to do anything illegal. He ran for president again in 1924 on the Republican ticket with the slogan, "Keep cool with Coolidge." He avoided crises and kept the country pretty prosperous. So, oh, I hit the wrong thing. Here is Keep Cool with Coolidge, lovely fan. Keep cool with Coolidge. So he's basically promising that everything will stay under the radar as he's president, no major problems that they will have. It says, meanwhile, the allies to the U.S. from World War I are having a hard time paying off their own war debt, and it says they could not afford to buy many U.S. exports. Okay, this is no surprise from the Treaty of Versailles, which blamed and punished Germany, and the French and the British are really after Germany for this war. Germany can't pay. The French and the British have this mess going on where they're not getting any money, and they're in devastation also. And if all these places in Europe are in devastation, there's a fly in here, then they cannot afford to buy any of our stuff, our exports. So it says, of course, Germany could not afford to pay its reparations. Duh, we already knew that. Okay, we said that all along. $33 billion is insane amount of money, especially when you've lost a war. Okay, so with that said, we have enter Charles Dawes. Charles G. Dawes is going to come up with the Dawes Plan, which is an agreement between France, Britain, and Germany. France, Britain, and Germany. So France and Britain were on the same side, and now they're going to include Germany, where American banks make loans to Germany. And it says that would help them make their reparation payment. And then Britain and France would accept less than $33 billion from Germany, but they would take that money. So it's like we send money to Germany. Germany sends some of that money to Britain and France. Britain and France accept a smaller amount, but do accept it. And then they turn around and buy all of our stuff. So it's very cyclical. Here is a picture of the Dawes Plan. Just really quickly, let me say, remember from the very first unit of the West, we had the Dawes Act, which was assimilation of Native Americans. This is not the Dawes Act. Not. This is the Dawes Plan, okay? The plan was a money plan. So you see here, USA, it starts right here. USA would make their loan to Germany. Germany cannot pay off the reparation, so they take this money and keep a little small part of it to rebuild, and then take the rest and pay Britain and France in the reparations, the money they owed. Britain and France, in turn, agree to accept less reparation. Then they turn around, and it says war loans are repaid, so they turn around and buy USA stuff. Okay, and we thought that that would help us. All right. So, Washington Naval Conference, Charles Evans Hughes proposes 10-year halt on all construction of warships. We're not going to build any more warships. We, Britain, France, Italy, Japan, and the U.S. So we agree, no more construction of new warships. We think that war is bad, and we've just come out of World War I, a world war, and we say, you know what, it's just not a good idea for us to even think about this happening again sometime soon. So we're going to stop building any new warships. Washington Naval Conference. To piggyback that, you have the Kellogg-Briand Pact. I'll show you what it is not. It is not this. Okay, it's not this kind of Kellogg. Actually, this is General Mills, but we didn't have Kellogg in our house. So it's not this. It's not cereal Kellogg. It is an agreement between us and 14 other nations to abandon all war. No more war. Okay? We will settle all disputes peacefully. So, we have seen the horrors of war. Europe has seen the horrors of war. And we've had this Washington Naval Conference, we're not going to build more ships. And now we're going to go way out there and get 14 countries to sign and say, well, not only that, but we're just not going to be involved in war ever again. I mean, that's a great proposition. That is totally unrealistic, however. Especially when you have just pretty much annihilated Germany's manhood and pride. So they have nothing. And the people are desperate for jobs and everything else. I mean, they can't even make their war debt. And we're trying to help them with that, with the Dawes Plan, but it's just bad. You see the groundwork for someone rising up and causing a problem. And yet we don't see that. So we signed Kellogg-Briand Pact. No more war. Just think of little kids eating their cereal saying no more war. Okay? The economy in the 20s. So we're going to shift a little bit back to America while all that was going on overseas. And you now have the automobile as part of American life. Welfare capitalism takes hold, where employers raise wages to try to get rid of unions. So in a way, it was good because workers are getting paid more. And you have Henry Ford, car maker, who develops, not him, he doesn't develop it, but he uses the moving assembly line and puts in place division of labor in his Ford plant in Highland Park, Michigan. So division of labor means one person does one job all day long. We've talked about this before when we did factory work versus craft work. So Henry Ford will put that in place. And it says by 1925, a Ford car like a Model T, one was rolling off the line brand new every 10 seconds. So ka-ching is what Henry Ford was saying. They're making the car extremely cheap, and even the average assembly line worker could afford the car. So it was amazing how cheap these cars really were with the moving assembly line. So we've gotten rid of craft work. So now we're looking for unskilled immigrant laborers who can't speak English because nobody cares anyway. You're just putting one widget on one widget all day long in these Ford factories. The car will change the American way of life. It will change everything up to dating later in the 50s when you have drive-in movies and you go with your date. Everything changes. The building of the interstate highway, everything. Okay, I think I probably have a picture. Lord have mercy, no. But you're going to watch a video on that later, so that'll help. Okay, Wilbur Orville Wright from Dayton, Ohio, made the first crewed power flight in history at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. The sand dunes there at Kitty Hawk. This is a very famous picture. I'm sure you've seen it before. The Wright brothers. And then it says we start having air mail flying from Washington, D.C. to New York. We don't yet have people on the planes as far as passengers yet, like commercial flights. Then Charles Lindbergh, Lucky Lindy, is the first person to fly nonstop from New York to Paris, May 1927, on his plane, the Spirit of St. Louis. And I actually got to see that this past summer and took lots of pictures. Like I went crazy. It was hanging up in the ceiling. It was like the actual plane. Anyway, my family thought I was crazy. But anyway, there's Charles Lindbergh's Spirit of St. Louis. Lindbergh is going to come up again later in our class. Okay, other consumer changes, and hopefully you see what's about to come because down here it says bad times ahead. So you have NBC and CBS new broadcasting companies that are coming out, National Broadcasting Company and CBS. So you have that. They're just on the radio right now, no TV yet. Mass advertising, billboards start popping up as we have development of highways, we have billboards. Consumer economy, large amount of spending by these consumers. You have large amounts of advertising, radio ads, now you have large amounts of spending. No longer do you pay cash up front. Installment plans, partial plans at certain times until the debt is paid gets us closer and closer to the credit card, but we're not there yet. But we're just basically saying I'll pay a little bit at a time. Now they do buy on credit. Now this is like at a mom and pop store where you would go in and have like a tab and you would say, I'm going to get this sugar and this flour, put it on my tab. And at the end of the month, you would pay that off. Eventually they're going to stop paying it off. Signs of bad times ahead. The rich get richer like Ford. You have increased buying on credit, which forces Americans into debt. You need to understand, at this point, people actually, before this, would walk into a place and have cash and pay. Like, that's it. That was the only way you paid. So there was no credit. There was no debit card. There was no other method. There weren't even checks, okay? So you're going to go in, have your cash, pay for your good. When people can use credit, like a tab, they go into debt. Because procrastination is what we do, right? Less wealthy buy stock on margin. They buy stock for a fraction of the price, borrow the rest, and promise that they're going to pay all that. Says they hope that the stock goes up enough to pay off their debt. The problem is often the stock doesn't, and they're in more debt. A point was reached where supply is greater than demand. And falling farm prices leave farmers in debt. So we even have the farmer in debt. Okay, so let's go back to our essential questions. It says, oh Lord, sorry. In what ways did the spoil system become a political problem? That was down there with the Ohio gang, okay, and Warren G. Harding, his cabinet. All right, remember they're playing their cards and all that stuff, and all involved in bribery with the Teapot Dome affair. How is Kellogg-Briand Pact not realistic? Because saying we're not going to have any war at all, especially if you came out of a major world war, is slightly ridiculous. It's also especially because we did not lay the groundwork for fixing the political and economic problems of the places that were destroyed, i.e. Germany. Okay, you need to go back and do your summary, and see you guys later. Bye.